Most people walk through life believing anger is something that happens to think someone cuts them off in traffic, disrespects them, or screws them over, and boom, the rage just shows up like an uninvited guest they can't kick out. They'll tell you, "That's just how I am," or "He made me lose my temper." I hear it every single day, and every single time I hear it, I know they're handing their power to someone else on a silver platter. Let me take you back to the temple, high in the mountains, zero heat, stone floors colder than ice, training sessions that started at 4 in the morning and didn't stop until the sun went down. We weren't allowed to speak for weeks at a time. You get punched in the face, kicked in the ribs, or have a staff cracked across your back, and the rule was simple: no reaction, not because pain doesn't hurt, it does, but because the masters drilled one truth into us until it became bone. Deep anger is a choice, not a reaction. See, between whatever happens out there and whatever you do about it, there's a gap. Most people never notice the gap because they live their entire lives inside the first 2 seconds of emotion. The amygdala fires, adrenaline dumps, heart rate spikes, and before they even know what's happening, words are flying, fists are clenched, relationships are burning. That's the animal brain doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect you from a tiger in the grass 10,000 years ago. Problem is, there's no tiger anymore. There's just some guy who stole your parking spot or sent you a rude text, and the animal brain can't tell the difference. The masters taught us to live inside that gap. They made us slow everything down until we could feel the exact moment the trigger hit and the exact moment the decision showed up. And in that tiny sliver of time, smaller than a heartbeat, lives all your freedom. Because in that gap you get to choose. You always get to choose. Nobody puts anger inside you. You pick it up and put it on like a jacket, usually because it feels familiar, sometimes because it feels justified, almost always because it's easier than staying calm. I remember one winter, one of the senior monks decided I was his personal project. Every single day for 3 months he found new ways to push every button I had. He'd dump freezing water on me while I meditated. He'd hide my boots in the snow. He'd whisper the exact things he knew would make my blood boil, and every single time the heat would rise, I'd feel it in my chest first, then my face, then my fists. But I had been taught to watch it like weather rolling in across the valley. I could see the storm coming, and I still had the choice to open the door and let it wreck the house, or stand on the porch and let it pass. It took weeks before I stopped opening the door, months before the storms even bothered showing up. And one morning, after he'd done something especially cruel, I just looked at him, smiled, and bowed. He never messed with me again, not because I beat him up, because he realized he couldn't reach me anymore. That's when I understood the deepest Shaolin secret. The man who can make you angry owns you. The moment you stop giving him that power, you become untouchable, and here's the part nobody wants to hear. Choosing calm when everything inside you screams to explode is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It feels weak at first. It feels like losing. Society lies to you and says blowing up is strength. Walking around with a short fuse somehow makes you a man. Total bullshit. Real strength is standing in the fire and not letting it burn you. Real strength is getting disrespected to your face and realizing your peace is worth more than their opinion. So starting today, I want you to hunt for that gap. The next time someone pisses you off, don't speak yet. Don't react yet. Just notice the space between what they did and what you're about to do. It's small, maybe half a second at first. That's fine. That half second is your entire kingdom. Guard it with your life, because once you learn to live there, nobody on this planet can ever take your peace again. The gap is where freedom begins. Master the gap, and you master everything else. You've found the gap. Good. Now I'm going to give you the single most practical tool I ever brought down from that mountain. The one thing that works in the real world when some idiot is screaming in your face, when your boss just humiliated you in a meeting, or when life hits you with something that would have sent the old you into a red-eyed rage. We called it the 4-second rule. 4 seconds, that's all. But those 4 seconds are the difference between staying in control and handing the keys of your mind to whoever happens to be standing in front of you. Here's how it was beaten into us. Dawn training, -20 degrees, barefoot on frozen stone. 2 monks square off, wooden staffs, no pads, no mercy. The rule was simple. The first one to show anger on his face or in his strike lost instantly. Didn't matter if you landed every blow perfectly. If your eyes flashed or your breath hissed, you dropped and gave 50 push-ups in the snow while the others watched. After a few weeks of eating frostbite and humility, you learn real fast to slow the world down. The masters notice something. The surge of rage, the chemical dump, peaks hard and then drops off a cliff at exactly the 4-second mark. 4 seconds is how long it takes for the phytor, light juice, to start draining and for the thinking part of your brain to come back online. Under 4 seconds you're still a caveman. Over 4 seconds you're a man again. 4 seconds is the border between slave and sovereign, so they made us count silently. 1, 2, 3, 4, not out loud, never out loud, because the second you open your mouth to count, you've already lost. It has to be inside the skull, cold and clean. You take the hit, you feel the burn climbing your neck, and you count 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time you hit 4, the storm has already started to pass. The voice that was screaming, "Destroy him," suddenly sounds like a child throwing a tantrum, and you realize you don't have to obey it. I carried that count into every ugly corner of the real world. Road rage in L.A. Traffic at rush hour. Guy flips me off, leans on his horn like it's personal. Old me would have followed him 10 miles just to prove a point. New me felt the heat, started the count. 1, 2, 3, 4. By 4 I was laughing at how small the whole thing was. Argument with someone I love, words flying like knives. Same count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Suddenly I could hear what was actually being said instead of just defending my ego. 4 seconds feels like forever when adrenaline is hammering your ribs. That's the point. You're stretching time on purpose. You're proving to your nervous system that you're the one driving, not the chemicals. And every single time you make it to 4 without reacting, you rewire your brain a little more. The gap gets wider. The count gets easier. Eventually people start saying things like nothing ever gets to you. And they have no idea you're just a guy silently counting to 4 like a lunatic while the world loses its mind around you. Do it enough and something wild happens. The triggers start losing their charge completely. The things that used to set you off become background noise. You'll be in the middle of a screaming match and realize you're calm, almost bored, watching the other person drown in their own emotion while you float above it. That's the real flex, not yelling louder, not getting the last word. Just standing there untouched, because you gave yourself 4 quiet seconds to remember who you actually are. Start today. Next time the heat comes, and it will, don't speak, don't move, don't text, don't slam the door. Just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 seconds of silence that buy you a lifetime of peace. 4 seconds is all it ever takes to stay free. You've got the gap. You've got the 4-second count. Now let's talk about the real poison that turns a spark into a wildfire every single time. Your ego. 99 times out of 100, the reason you lose your peace isn't because of what someone did. It's because you decided it was about you. Someone cuts you off, and suddenly it's a personal attack on your worth. Someone talks trash, and it feels like they just reached inside your chest and questioned everything you've ever built. That's the ego screaming, "How dare they treat me like this?" And the second you buy that story, you're already angry before the first word even leaves your mouth. Up in the temple, they stripped ego away the same way they stripped everything else, slowly, painfully, and without asking permission. You wake up at 3:30 a.m., scrub the floors with the same rag the grandmaster used the day before, eat the same plain rice as the newest kid who showed up yesterday, and if you dared act like you were special, they made sure you carried water buckets up the mountain until your hands bled and your pride died of exhaustion. The message was brutal and crystal clear. The I that you're protecting so hard is an illusion, and the sooner you see it, the sooner you stop suffering. The masters had a saying carved into the stone wall above the training hall: what you defend, you make real. Every time you jump to defend your image, your status, your story about who you are, you breathe life into something that isn't even solid. Someone says you're lazy, and instead of letting it float past like smoke, you grab it, pin it to your chest and say, "This is about me." And now you're bleeding from a wound that only exists because you decided to hold a knife. I carried that lesson out into the world and tested it in the ugliest places. Bar fights, boardrooms, family Thanksgivings that went sideways, online comments from strangers who don't even know my real name. Same pattern every time. The second I felt the hook in my chest, I'd ask myself one question the monks drilled into us. Is this actually about me, or is this about their own pain? And 999 times out of 1,000, the answer was the second one. The guy yelling in traffic is late to pick up his kid from practice. The coworker throwing shade just got chewed out by his wife that morning. The internet troll is 15 and miserable. Their poison has nothing to do with my worth. It's just poison looking for a place to land. When you finally see that, something shifts. You stop wearing the world's opinions like clothes that can fit you. Insults start bouncing off the same way rain slides off a waxed hood. You watch people try to hand you their anger the way you'd watch someone try to hand you a bag of garbage, and you just step aside and let it hit the ground. They're still swinging, still screaming, still desperate for you to pick it up and fight over it, and you're just standing there, calm, almost curious, like you're watching a storm blow itself out on the other side of a window. It feels impossible at first. Letting an insult land without catching it feels like standing naked in public, but that naked feeling is the point. That's the moment you realize you don't need the armor you've been carrying your whole life. The armor was never protecting you. It was just making you a bigger target. So next time someone tries to drag you into the mud, try this. Picture their words as arrows fired at a version of you that doesn't actually exist. Let the arrows fly right through the ghost and bury themselves in the dirt behind you. They can't hit what isn't there, and the fastest way to make the you they're aiming at disappear is to stop believing the story that anything they say defines your value. Remove the target and nobody can hit you ever. When nothing is personal, nothing can hurt you. You've learned to see the gap, to count to 4, to stop taking everything personally. Beautiful. But some of you are still sitting there with this ball of fire in your chest asking, okay, fine, I didn't explode, but what the hell do I do with all this energy now? Because here's the truth nobody talks about. Anger doesn't just disappear when you decide not to yell. It sits there, hot and heavy, looking for a way out. And if you don't give it a job, it will find one on its own, usually by eating you alive from the inside or leaking out later on the people who don't deserve it. Up on the mountain, they taught us a principle older than the temple itself. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. They called it turning poison into medicine. You take the exact same fire that would have destroyed a relationship, ruined a day, or landed you in a cell, and you redirect it into something that makes you stronger, sharper, richer, better. You weaponize it against your own weakness instead of against other people. I learned this the hard way one winter when a senior monk decided to make an example out of me in front of the entire courtyard. He humiliated me for a solid 10 minutes, voice like a whip, every word designed to cut deep. My face was burning, my fists were clenched so hard my knuckles went white, and I could feel the rage pooling like molten metal in my gut. I did the count 1, 2, 3, 4, and the explosion never left my mouth. But the fire was still there, roaring. That's when the old master walked past me, didn't even look up, and said 2 words, "Use it." That was the day I discovered the real secret. I dropped right there on the frozen stone and cranked out 100 push-ups so fast the courtyard went silent. The rage didn't vanish. It poured straight into my muscles. By the time I hit 50, I wasn't shaking from humiliation anymore. I was shaking from power. By the time I stood up, the monk who'd torn into me looked smaller. Not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I had just turned his attack into my evolution. From that day on, anger became rocket fuel. Someone disrespects me. I hit the gym and add 20 pounds to my deadlift. Work screws me over. I stay 2 hours late and finish the project so well they can't ignore it anymore. Wife and I fight. I go outside and sprint until my lungs scream louder than the argument ever could. Every single time I took the energy that wanted to destroy and aimed it at the version of me that still had room to grow. You can do the same thing right now, today. The second you feel that heat rise and you choose not to let it out sideways, immediately ask yourself one question: where does this fire go to work for me? Then move, physically move, drop and give me 20. Grab the heaviest thing you own and carry it across the room 10 times. Go outside and run until your legs give out. Clean the garage like a man possessed. Attack the hardest item on your to-do list like it insulted your mother. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's hard and it's useful. The monks used to say the body is the furnace and action is the valve. Open the valve in the right direction and the fire purifies you. Leave it closed and it burns the house down. Simple as that. Do this enough times and something insane happens. You start to feel gratitude when people piss you off, because every trigger becomes free fuel. Every insult becomes another rep, another mile, another dollar in the bank, another step toward the man you're supposed to become. People hand you their negativity expecting you to choke on it, and instead you turn it into muscle, money, and unbreakable calm. They lose twice, once when they fail to get under your skin, and again when they watch you level up because of it. So the next time the rage shows up, smile. Welcome it like an old friend carrying a loaded gun, because that's exactly what it is. Take the gun, point it at your goals, and pull the trigger. Turn the poison into medicine, and nobody can ever hurt you again. You've got the tools now. You can see the gap, count to 4, drop the ego, and turn the fire into fuel. But if you really want anger to lose its grip forever, if you want to walk through life with a kind of peace that nothing on this earth can shake, then you need something deeper. Something most people run from the second they hear it. Every single morning before your feet hit the floor, before you check your phone, before you let the world start screaming at you, I want you to do one thing. Look straight into the darkness and remind yourself, out loud if you have to, that today could be the day you die. Sounds extreme, sounds dark, good, that's exactly why it works. Up in the temple, death wasn't some distant concept we talked about when we got old. Death was breakfast. We started every single day with the same ritual. The bell rings at 3:30, you sit up on your wooden plank, and the first words out of your mouth are, "This might be my last day." Then you bow to the floor, stand up, and go train like a man who has 0 hours left to waste. You eat that plain rice like it's your last meal. You scrub that floor like it's the final act of service you'll ever perform. And when someone kicks you in the ribs or dumps cold water on your head, you don't get mad, because you already accepted this morning that pain, humiliation, and death itself could show up before sunset. Most people live like tomorrow is guaranteed. They fight over $10, scream about a parking spot, hold grudges for decades, all because deep down they believe they have infinite time to fix it, to win it, to prove they were right. Death meditation rips that illusion away. Suddenly a stranger's rude comment is nothing. A delayed flight is nothing. Even real betrayal, real loss, starts to lose its venom when you zoom out far enough to remember that every breath is borrowed. I carried that practice down the mountain and into every war zone life threw at me. Lost everything in a business deal. This might be my last day. Relationship exploded. This might be my last day. Doctor calls with test results that stop your heart. This might be my last day, and every single time the petty stuff just falls off like dead weight. The arguments I thought I couldn't live without suddenly feel ridiculous. The insults I wanted to carry to my grave become laughable. Because when you stare death in the face every morning, you realize almost nothing that happens today is actually worth trading your peace for. It rewires what matters. You stop needing to win every argument. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing the last word, because if this is it, if the clock really stops tonight, do you want your final hours poisoned by anger over something you're not even going to remember in a week? Hell no, you want them clean, you want them quiet, you want them filled with the people and the missions that actually count. And here's the part nobody expects. The more you live like you're dying, the more alive you become. Colors get sharper, food tastes better, you hug harder, you listen when people talk. You move with purpose because every step could be the last one. Anger doesn't stand a chance in that space. It shows up looking for a fight and finds a man who's already made peace with everything. So tomorrow morning, before the world gets its hooks in you, sit on the edge of your bed, close your eyes and say it. Today might be my last. Feel it hit your chest. Then get up and live the day like a man who has absolutely nothing to lose, because the truth is you don't. When death is your daily advisor, anger becomes irrelevant. You've got the gap, the count, the ego drop, the fire redirect, the death meditation. You're armed better than 99% of men walking the planet right now. But every now and then life throws you into a conversation that's already on fire. Someone's yelling, accusing, demanding, trying to drag you into the mud with them, and all the inner work in the world feels too slow. You need a kill switch, one sentence, one move that ends the fight before it starts, leaves you clean, and makes the other person realize they just swung at smoke. The monks handed it down like it was the deadliest technique in the temple, because in a way it is. They used it for centuries when warlords showed up at the gate looking for tribute, when rival sects came to test them, when drunk soldiers wanted blood. The masters never raised a fist. They raised 4 words, delivered flat, calm, and final, you might be right. Then silence. Then they walked away. That's it. 4 words, 0 fuel, fight over. I've used it in bar fights, divorce papers, boardroom ambushes, family dinners that were one insult away from World War III, and every single time it works like magic. Because what people really want when they come at you hot is a reaction. They want you to defend, justify, argue, prove them wrong. They want you to grab the ropes so they can start the tug of war, say you might be right, and you cut the rope. There's nothing left to pull, the whole game collapses. Watch what happens in their head the second those words land. First there's confusion, they were braced for impact and got nothing. Then there's this weird emptiness where their adrenaline has nowhere to go. Then, almost every time, the aggression leaks out of them like air from a punctured tire. They either stand there stammering, walk away, or, and this is the best part, suddenly calm down and start talking like a human again. Either way, you stay untouched. It works because it's the ultimate ego drop in real time. You're not agreeing with them. You're not surrendering. You're simply refusing to make their opinion the center of your universe. You're saying, your story might be true from where you're standing, and that's got nothing to do with my peace. It's the verbal version of letting the arrow fly through the ghost we talked about earlier. I remember the first time I used it outside the temple. Guy twice my size in a row, rage incident, screaming through my window, veins popping, ready to drag me out of the car. Old me would have met him punch for punch. New me rolled the window all the way down, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, calm as Sunday morning, you might be right. He froze, mouth half open, rage still on his face, but nowhere to put it. 10 seconds of the most awkward silence on the planet, then he muttered something, got back in his truck, and drove off. I sat there shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer power of realizing I just disarmed a man with 4 words and 0 violence. Start practicing it today. Next time someone's trying to bait you, don't explain, don't counter, don't teach them a lesson. Just hit them with you might be right. Then shut up and let the silence do the rest. Say it like you mean it, like it's the most natural thing in the world, because once you've done the inner work, it is. Do it enough and people stop coming at you altogether. Word gets around that you're the guy nothing sticks to. They'll test you once, maybe twice, then leave you alone, and the few who keep trying, they're handing you free training reps to stay sharp. So the next time the world tries to pull you into drama, remember the deadliest sentence ever spoken in that temple. 4 words, calm voice. Walk away clean, you might be right. And that's the last thing they'll ever hear you say in a fight.